Well, the projects really didn't fire off to around about October last year when Frank Ford, local historian, he organises round the island walks or round the parish walks on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor. When he came to see me to organise a walk, he said, I think we'll do the George Carteret route. And I said, well, who was George Carteret? And really that's where it went from there, learning about history in the run-up to the walk, visiting the places where George Carteret lived in the parish as part of the walk, and then reading the biography done on his life by the Société Géraise. That then gave me the insight to what he was. And I suddenly realised then that actually, as a Jerseyman, I should have known this man who was actually credited in the preface to the book, to his biography, as perhaps the most outstanding Jerseyman that's ever lived. And why didn't I know his name? And why is it that many other Jerseymen don't know his name? And that was really what started making me think, what do we do? What can I do to actually bring him back to life in the minds of Jersey people, and recognising that one of our famous sons and what he's achieved both locally, nationally and internationally.
As we know, last year was the 350th anniversary of the award of the Mace, and this year marks the 350th anniversary of the founding of the state of New Jersey. Now, both of these actions were the result of the actions of the man we've come to honour today, Sir George Carteret, a son of St. Peter. And so it's therefore most fitting that we're today honouring his memory by unveiling the statue. His story is well known, but perhaps not as well known as it should be. He was the son of Jurat Carteret. His parents lived in St. Peter, and he went to school here. After learning his maritime skills in the Newfoundland cod trade, he joined the Royal Navy at the age of 20, where he quickly made his mark. During the Civil War, he sided with the king, and he established a fleet of privateers to help supply the king's forces with ammunition. As a result, no doubt, in 1643, he was appointed Lieutenant Governor and Bailiff of Jersey by King Charles I. As is well known, the island under his leadership sheltered Charles II on two occasions. The first was in 1646, during the life of King Charles I, when the prince was only 14, and he came for some 10 weeks. The second was in September 1649, after the king's execution. And of course, most significantly, on the 17th of February 1649, George Carteret caused a proclamation to be read out in the Royal Square, proclaiming Prince Charles as the new king. And that was, of course, 11 years ahead of the Restoration. It was, in retrospect, a very brave act. Parliament had abolished the office of king and had threatened death to anyone who would speak of the prince as king. And of course, the parliamentary forces were very strong. But under Sir George, that is what the island did at that time. Upon the Restoration in 1660, Sir George was very much one of King Charles II's favourites, and the award of the Mace in 1663 was made to reward him and the island for its loyalty. But as we've heard, that was not the limit of the king's generosity. Having awarded him and a number of others Carolina, which at that stage was simply a large swamp, he then rewarded Carteret and a colleague, Sir John Berkeley, in 1664 with the whole of the coastal plain lying between the River Hudson and the state of Delaware, which, the king said, was henceforth to be called New Jersey. And this, of course, took place in 1664. Sir George continued to be honoured by King Charles. He was made Treasurer of the Navy and subsequently one of the Lords of the Admiralty. Shortly before his death, the king proposed that he be given the title of Baron Carteret, but unfortunately he died in January 1680 before this could happen. So the honour passed in due course to his grandson. He was, on any view, a larger-than-life character, full of courage and full of strength of purpose. He was one of Jersey's great figures, and he rose to the highest reaches of life in the court in London. And I was interested in what the Connotar just had to say just now, that a young boy from St. Peter can indeed rise to the highest reaches even of a much larger country.
The statue in itself, for me, is a point of potential energy, because what I see in looking at Sir George's biography is a boy that grew up in St. Peter. He went to school in St. Peter. He left school at a very early age, went fishing, which was very dominant in the island and back in the 17th century, and grew from there into the man that he was. And I want to be saying to the children around today, you could be that man. You could strive for that. There's nothing to stop you becoming as big, or if not bigger, than that man. And one of the things, the outcome of this, I'm currently working with trying to find a sponsor. Because what Laury did, she made me a couple of bronze maquettes, and one of those maquettes I'm holding back to have an annual award in Jersey for the person who's tried the hardest, who's committed, whose loyalty and devotion to his cause is without question exactly the same as Sir George's was. It's not the guy that wins every races or the girl that comes at the top of the class. It's the person who doggedly turns up every week for the training sessions, does their best within their abilities and stands out for their absolute commitment. And that's what I want the Sir George to represent ideally for the future. And if that grows within Jersey, then I've achieved my aim. My aim is not just to deliver the statue and remember the past, is to make that live and go forward. And I'm hoping to find a sponsor that's going to sponsor it on an annual basis to a tune of around about £1,000, because another one of Sir George's interesting aspects was he was absolutely ruthless in business. He ended up an extremely wealthy man, because he was, if he owed you a farthing, he would have that farthing, doesn't matter what. If you owed it, you had to pay it. But he was also very generous in charity. So I see £500 going to the young person up to the age of 19, is where I am at the moment, which would give them enough to buy themselves an iPad or a telephone or a camera or a small laptop or something like that. But the other £500 they'd have to give away. They'd have to give it away to a charity or their cause or their club or whatever it is that's actually brought them to our attention. It reinforces what he achieved, but it also reinforces that underlying culture of people, that it's not all about receiving, it's about giving, and it's about loyalty, it's about commitment. Things which seem to be not so important today. And it's nice if in some way we can recreate that and re-energise. Jersey is quite unique in that respect, and we lose that uniqueness at our peril.